What's up, you scallywags? Welcome to episode 123 of the show with me, Michael Labs, your co-host and your host, because I'm the only person on the show. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some notes here. It's going to be a good episode. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my bones, man. How's everyone doing? It's a beautiful week. Happy Thursday. I hope you've been enjoying your September. We're moving into October here very soon, man. Halloween's right around the corner. The California trying to get rid of Halloween. Fuck that. You can't get rid of Halloween, man. Halloween's a time for all the perverts to go out and get all weird and the old people to get all perverty again and everybody to dress up as a slut and the dudes to like fucking... It's just wild times, man. Halloween is such a fucked holiday. It's such a stupid holiday. Right? It's a weird holiday. We dress up and we ask for candy. It's like a pervert's favorite. It's like a pervert's dream. Literally, it is a dream of a child molester. There's nothing better than Halloween if you are into child molesting. It's disgusting. It really is. It's a crazy concept. It's a crazy concept that we just keep on rocking and rolling with it every year. Nobody's thinking about it. Like, dude, maybe they should have banned Halloween. Maybe not even for like the coronavirus thing. Maybe they should have banned it just for ethics. Just creepy old dudes giving out candy to little kids and knock on the door. Who's there? Trick or treat. Smell my feet. Like, that shit is weird, man. It's wild, man. It's been a crazy week. It's been a crazy month. It's been a crazy year. I don't think 2020 is a piece of shit year, man. I think if you hunker down at the beginning of coronavirus and you started working hard and you started creating things that maybe you never wanted to do, I think when we look into the future, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, we're going to look back at this. And I think a lot of people are going to realize how this was like a diving board for a lot of people's lives. I know for me, I've really taken the podcast and I've been super duper consistent. I've been working extremely hard on it, and I've been putting out content twice a week, you know, just pushing really hard on that. And I think a lot of people are doing the same thing. I really do. I think it's one of those things that it's dressed up like a Halloween costume. It looks like, I think coronavirus more than anything is really exposing humans and just how we are and who we think we are, and this concept that we think we are a certain way, that we're, you know, good people, or, you know, that I think it's really exposing all of our flaws, right? I think exposing a lot about who we think we are, which I think is a good thing, right? I think it's a good thing to have that come out, to see the assholes of society. You know, I think it's really important to see that. And I think that's going to be the best thing for coronavirus. But I saw the biggest Karen today, man. I was coming home from the gym, and there was a stop sign. And I had to go. There was road work, so I had to stop my car. And I stopped it from, I don't know, like 100 feet from the stop sign. And I knew there was road work going on because normally I never stop that far. I can just go. And this road I'm on is always backed up with water. So at first I was like, shit, man. The water's stopping us. By the way, I always look at my podcast Roadcaster because I worry that it's not working. I've never had that issue, which is surprising. Shit, I forgot water. Balls. Maybe I'll just start drinking my champagne over there. I've never had that issue where I've completely forgot to hit record. But I am terrified that I will have that issue sooner than later. And then I'm going to be completely bummed out. I'm not a professional, dude. If you guys come to this podcast for like professional content, then I'm sorry, it's not this podcast. But anyways, I digress. The Karen incident. This might be like the first time I ever talked about Karen incident. I didn't even know what it was. I think it didn't start with the white chick calling the cops on the black guy in New York City because like he had a peacock or something, or he was walking a cat, or no, he was walking a dog, and he was like waving to her and she thought like he was being an asshole or something like that. Dude, there's so many people like that. I run into them all the time. Usually men. I don't know if I want to talk about it. There's a guy and he, within like 2 days, back to back, he made homophobic remarks and he also made racial remarks to me. I don't know what it is about me, but people feel that they can just say the most outlandish stuff to me. I think it's because I look like the most like conservative person you can imagine. Like I'm a white dude, right? And I have short hair, right? I guess that kind of makes you look like you're super duper like a MAGA-ish, which I'm not. But I give like this weird comfort to racist and homophobes too. I don't know what that says about me because I'm definitely not racist and I'm definitely not a homophobe. I don't know what it says about me. I don't think I definitely shouldn't worry about it because I can't control that. But he like came up and he like said remarks to me that were like, there was a festival around our neighborhood, our house. And he basically was telling me how like the owner of this festival was like, hey man, there's so many gays here nowadays. Like there's so many gays walking around, eating turkey legs, getting beers. And like just having to say that makes you go, it's very see between the dotted lines that he's not a fan of gay people. And then I was reading this book. I'm reading this awesome book called Color of Law. I just finished 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari. I recommend reading all his books, Sapiens, Homo Deus, Sapiens, and 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. I know you will absolutely love his books. I'm saying you like you listening to this, read his books or listen to them. They're fantastic books. They're very thought-provoking. They're beautiful, beautiful books. So here's my chicken. My chicken right there. What was I talking about? Yeah, so I'm reading this book called Color of Law, and it talks about systematic racism because I've talked about systematic racism here before on this podcast, and when I talk about it, I find myself going like, oh shit, I actually don't know what I'm talking about. So how do I stop that? I look up books to read about systematic racism. I just Google it. By the way, if anybody out there is lacking knowledge on things, instead of being insecure about it and being angry towards people or towards the world because you don't know something, Google what you don't know, look up how to learn what you don't know, and then get to know the thing that you didn't know. It's magic. It's like a magic trick. It's like Chris Angel. You know, it's crazy how it works that way. Or you can just keep on going around and being an asshole. But I get this book, and I'm reading this book, and oh shit, I meant to grab it and read a couple pages from it. I don't know. I feel like I haven't done a podcast in so long. And I'm reading this book, and he's like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, "Oh, it's a book on systematic racism in the United States." And he said something that was like, he said something. He was like, "It's just gonna get worse if we continue, or it should get." He said something that was just very off-putting about. He was like basically denying, like the certain things I'm gonna describe that happened like in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s in the United States. Like just completely obliviously was like, nope, didn't happen. And it was like, I think it said age. It's the people between like 60 and 85 years old. You know, if you're 60 years old, you were born in 1960, right? So you were 10, between 10 to 20 was the 70s. The 70s. And I think it really shaped those people. And it was very off-putting because I'm reading this book, and it's honestly, I recommend it for everybody. But it's a New York Times bestseller. I pretty much only read New York Times bestsellers. I didn't realize that until I did realize that, obviously. It's the only way you realize things, until you don't not know it anymore. The moment you know it, then you realize it. God, I want some frozen yogurt. Yeah, so it talks about like these two concepts. I'm only like 25 pages into it. I'm not. It's just like schoolwork and stuff, and like working. It's the hardest. It makes me sad because I wish I could just read all day, but like I have to do things and shit. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. Talks about redlining, and you hear redlining a lot. I didn't really know what it meant, but this is what redlining is. So it started after World War II. And it was basically veterans were coming home from the war, white, black, both sides, both colors, all races were coming home for the war. What was it, 1945? War ended in like 1944, I think, 1945. And they were coming home, and this book mainly talks about San Francisco, which is, the irony is hilarious. It's not hilarious. It's really dark because San Francisco is very progressive, quote unquote. That the real issues started in this very progressive city, which always is like the thing. Usually people yelling the loudest have the darkest secrets. So like a city that's very, very aggressive usually has like weird shit going on. And I don't want to believe that, but the older I get, the more I realize. Have you seen my new fern? It's hanging out with my monkeys. I love it. I got a bunch of new plants here I want to show you. Show you guys, people out there on YouTube, and then on Apple or Spotify, or just talk about it. I hope the Spotify video thing comes. Okay. But yeah, redlining, or it's red zoning. I think it's redlining. Is these African Americans and white people would come home from the war. White people could go up to the VAs. The VAs would give them a direct loan to the bank. The bank would give them the loan. They could buy a house, right? They could buy a single-story house. And by the way, I'm not an expert on this, so I'm going to probably say a lot of things that aren't right. And if I do, if I do, it should be expected. And also, if you get your knowledge, if you get facts from me, stop that. Don't do that. Don't ever get facts from me. I barely have any facts of my own. I'm just a filter. I just repeat what I read and repeat what I say. But at least I try, man. I give it an effort. I give it an honest man's effort. So white people come home, they ask the VA, hey, VA, can you give me a loan? They go to the bank gives them a loan. They have a line of credit. They're able to buy a house, 30-year mortgage, boom, boom, bada bang. They have a house. Now, African Americans come home, and they go up to the VA, and the VA's goes to the bank, and they tell the bank, don't give them a loan. And that's what redlining is that the banks refuse to give African Americans loans to buy a house. So they couldn't buy a house. So they didn't have the ability to buy a single family house. So that's basically what redlining is. So since they weren't able to obtain a single family house because they didn't have the income, because they weren't able to get a loan, because the system was being racist towards them. The banks and the VA and the local governments were being racist towards this group of people. That's what systematic racism is. They had to live in something that was smaller. Okay, so this is where you can start connecting the dots here. So they have to downsize, and the city started building projects. And that's what they called them. They called it projects, smaller houses. And the African American families could afford these houses. And they afforded it with multiple people living together. And so then you started developing these towns where you started having suburbs, and these suburbs were the single family houses that had a loan because the government gave them a loan. And that was all white people because only they could get the loans. And that was on the outside of the city, right? And then you had in the inner city, or right around the city, you had African Americans who were living in high rises and projects. And these projects essentially were Section 8 housing where it was cheaper and they had a lot of people living together. So that kind of created the modern world that we live in, suburbs outside from the city. So you have the peace and quiet while you can still work in the city. And then you have the inner city, African Americans predominantly live there, and that's kind of what created this whole tension in the metropolitan area, and that's kind of throughout the entire country. So that's what redlining is, and I wasn't shocked by that. I'm never really shocked about this country's history when it comes to racism. I'm shocked when people don't like to read about it. Like, I think people are embarrassed by it, and I think some people just deny it and they don't really want to talk about it. But you should talk about it. You should definitely talk about it. It's really important to talk about things like that. Really important. And then there's other thing called blockbusting. Blockbusting. Sorry, I don't know what that was. I was looking for water again. I really do need a water. Maybe I could text Taylor and she can bring me up a water. She probably won't do it, though. She's doing a lot of homework. Can you bring me up a water bottle, please? We shall see what she says. So blockbusting is the idea where you have all these white suburbs, these suburbs owned by white people, a bunch of white people, and a black family moves in. They get a loan. They somehow can move in. So they live in this house. You would have realtors that would go around and they would tell these white people, hey, you got to move out. A black guy's moving in. Okay. So a bunch of houses would go for sale. They would all go for sale. The realtors would sell the houses. But before they sold the houses, they would inflate the prices really, really, really high. They would take a $100,000 house and they sell it for $300,000 house, and then the banks started giving out loans. But they gave out loans knowing that these African Americans couldn't pay for the house, right? They couldn't afford the house because no one can afford the house, white people or black people. They just couldn't afford the house. It's too expensive. It was unimaginable high loans or high prices on these houses. So now you have a bunch of white people skedaddling out of this area, rolling out left and right. And then you have African Americans coming left and right. Hi. Thank you.
Why are you wearing sunglasses?
Because it's bright in here. No, it's for the, it's an antic. You know the best part about it? I haven't even talked about them yet. I haven't even talked about the glasses yet.
I sent you a picture of Riley. Wait, I'll show you.
You got to show the camera people too.
I'm going to. Look how cute she is.
She's winking with her right eyeball.
Tell them that when I lay out a towel for Riley,
You got to show them
to.
to.
I'm going to, but they can't hear me.
But they can see it?
I know, I'm going to show you them.
Oh, so I'll narrate it.
No, yeah, just tell them that when I lay out a blanket for Riley.
So I think they can hear you.
She runs and comes and get it.
Yeah, so when we lay our... Look at her. She's adorable. Yeah, when we lay out a blanket for a bougie street dog, she will hop on top of it. And she'll lay down on it. And then if you ask her to come in, she doesn't want to come in. But she's mad right now because the weather's kind of cooling off, so it's not tanning season anymore for her. Thank you so much for water. I was getting really dry mouth. I almost started drinking the champagne. Aren't they so cute?
No, you can't.
Oh, can you bring up my agave plant? I want to show them.
Your aloe plant?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
You're such a fucking idiot.
Oh, but I love you too. I'm talking about blockbusting. Yo, what if Blockbuster... That would be so fucked. Anyways, yeah, so a bunch of black people started moving in. And there were white realtors were like, yo, that's scary. These people are animals, because that's what people thought at the time. And a lot of people still do think that. And so then you had families stuck in these areas, and they could never move out. So then you have generational systematic racism because they can never leave the places. I want to get a shelf like right here, or I want to frame this here and then put the plants there.
It's already framed.
So this one is a agave plant.
An aloe vera plant.
So this is an aloe vera plant.
Maybe
Right there.
there's a scientific name for
My grandma got it for me.
Is that what you call her?
My grandma. My grandma got me a desert plant for my skin when I get burned with the sun. I have two of them.
That's why she got it for you.
Yeah, she said you can, if you ever get sunburned, you can pop it, and put it on his body.
That's true.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I got 2 of them right here. 1, 2. I had the best. Cool. Look at this.
Oh, I have something to tell them and you. Okay, so you know how? Don't take it away. You know how we put the paper on the windows so that Charlie couldn't see out and bark?
You talking to me or them?
But everybody, I wanted to tell you,
Hi,
but
everybody.
so Charlie is Michael's dog, and when she barks, like I think we're gonna have hearing loss.
That far away, you want to be a fist.
And so
Don't do that on camera.
And so I had this genius idea where I put paper on the windows that she looks out, and that has been working really well. But today she figured out how to outsmart us. So she goes up on like the steps and she lays there and she looks out the window where she can see over the paper. And I feel so disrespected.
That's how you finish this story?
Yeah, that's the story. That's all.
Yeah, so that's why she doesn't have a podcast. Also, that's how I sound though too though. So, and then so Taylor, you want to explain what these are? I really do want to get like these up here. I'll hold them up for you.
So those are
Jesus Christ.
Stop, I can't reach it.
Right there.
So I came home from college because
You're such an attention whore. You love the podcast. Hey, look, there's a dumb bitch right there. What's up, buddy? Watch this, watch this. Come here. Hey. Hey.
Don't scare her.
Why is she backing up?
Paige
Come
doesn't like that.
Nobody likes that. They shouldn't like that. All right,
So, okay, so just like everybody else in the world, I moved all of my stuff back up to college, and like 2 days before classes started, my last online class, which was literally a plant class, like it was supposed to be in a greenhouse, like it got moved to completely online.
This is where your tax money is going.
And so, like, the week after this, I moved all of my stuff back. And unfortunately, like, the main bulk of my stuff is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
On my
9,
table.
10, 11, 12. About, like, 13 plants. And I have nowhere to put them because Michael's house has no window space. So they're all in Michael's room. And so I had to spread them out. And so these over here are succulents. And I put them specifically on Michael's podcast table because they're really hard to kill. And Michael thinks that you don't have to water things. And so...
I don't think it's water cactuses.
No, you still have to water cactuses.
Tell that to Africa.
You don't have to water them a lot, but you do still have to water them. Plants need water.
I need water too. That's why you brought it up for me. Anything else you want to say? Do you have any revelations that you want to share to all the people who listen to the podcast, or fellow college students who probably watch you on Zoom, or anybody out there you want to put anybody you want to throw shots at
Can
anybody?
I talk about that guy?
You talk shit all you want.
Okay, so
That's what a podcast is.
So the thing about Zoom is that what you can do on Zoom, for anybody who doesn't know, is basically you turn your camera on while you're watching class, and not every class you have to do it in, but it's just nice because it lets your professor know that you're there and they don't feel like they're talking to nobody. So most people have their camera turned on. And what happens because of this is every guy starts scouting out for girls.
By the way, I had no idea that that's a thing. And if you're a guy who does that, take a hammer, take a nail, take your dick out, put it up against the wall, put the nail through it, and just start slamming that shit in, because that's rock bottom. That is a crazy thing to do.
Okay.
DMing people on Zoom?
Yeah. And so, like, you can open it up. You can open the whole screen so that you can see everybody's picture, right? And so what I think men are doing is they're literally going through and looking at all the girls, and they pick one, okay? And so I didn't figure this out because I'm very naive, and I think everyone just wants to be my friend. But after it happened like a good 3 times, I was like, okay, you know, they're hitting on me by DMing me on Zoom. And to make matters worse, for anybody who doesn't know, you can actually pin a certain person on Zoom. So you can hit pin the image, and what happens is the only person that will show up on your Zoom is that person. So potentially some guy can think I'm a cutie and hit pin image and blow up my video, like my live video of me taking notes or watching the lecture, and he can just watch me the whole time. So, yeah, this is what the world had come to. I didn't think that it could get any worse with all the social media and stuff. Like, I really had no idea that men could go any further, but
men just use any tools they have.
Apparently y'all can, and it's even easier.
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at you. Oh. In your ridiculous sunglasses.
Are they cute?
No.
Thank you for the water. Yeah, so you fuckers out there, what the hell are you doing? Shout out to my teacher who's watching this podcast. One of my teachers was like, you saw that the IT guy said, "Oh, like your podcast," or something like that. So shout out to everybody in my classroom who's watching the podcast, if anyone's watching it. Yeah, thank you so much, Taylor, for you look like an attention whore. It looks like you wanna continuously talk on the podcast. What else do you want to say? You don't want to say anything?
No, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Okay. Go ahead and finish it up now.
Yeah.
Oh, good one. Yeah, so I got some cacti in here. They don't need water, so they're good. Thank you for the water. I drank it already. My throat was hurting. But yeah, blockbusting, man. Let's talk about how white people fucked over black people. So that's what it was. Literally, these real estate agents so what they would do is, she's watching me. They would announce to the white people that a black person moved into their house. Then all the white people would leave. Stop. You're not going to do that. Put your pants back on.
Stop. Take that back.
Close the door.
Stop. Take that back.
Okay.
Say that I have pants on.
She has pants on.
Okay. Goodbye.
She has pants on. I winked. They can't see, though, because I have glasses on. So, yeah, they fucked over these cities. And this is something that was happening all the time. This is all the time. And I think these are the things that people don't recognize when you talk about, like, systematic racism, or you talk about inequality. It's a real issue, and for some reason people hate even trying to accept the fact that this happened. I mean, let's say you're 25 years old when you come back from World War II, right? It's 1945. That means you were born in 1920. That means you'll be 100 years old today. That's a great grandfather. If you're 25, I'm assuming it's 1945, you have a kid. You probably have a kid the same year you get back, 1945. That kid turns out to be 75 years old. That kid has a kid. That your child is a grandparent living in this area. These people, African Americans who lived in this day and age, are just 2 generations away from this. And then we could talk about slavery, but slavery is a horrible thing. But we have to stop talking around these things that happen. And probably my next few episodes are going to be on this topic, because if you look at my podcast, it's very synonymous. It goes along with what I am reading, you know? So I think it's super fascinating that there's information out there, and I think it's all factual, right? So if people read it, you would hope that they could understand it. And because when you're someone born into an unfair situation, yeah, you both have a chance to do well, but it's like starting at a starting line 500 feet behind somebody else, right? So it just becomes that much harder. Yeah. I'm going to finish off this podcast. I hope you guys like that. That was cool. That was cool, her coming in. My podcast brain is literally like, oh, that's a clip. Got myself a clip there. Take that, put that on Instagram TV, got a good clip. It's going to get a lot of views. This is like the mind of a creator. It's so weird that I have a podcast because I never thought of myself as a creative person. And I still don't think I'm a creative person. I just find myself doing so many things very spontaneously without even thinking about it, that they lead me down these paths of like, oh, we have 123 episodes of a show that I've been doing for a year and a couple months now that gets thousands of downloads a month, and, is listened to in like 6 countries in Africa, 5 countries in Asia, South America, just like Latvia. Dude, I got to listen to Madagascar, the 6th largest island in the world. Probably not the 6th, probably like the 4th, maybe the 3rd. I digress, but yeah, I don't know how I've stumbled upon this, but I have, and I love it, and you guys are beautiful. And if you guys are listening to this right now, before I get into the last topic, please go ahead and leave this podcast a like on YouTube. Hit that notification bell on YouTube. Hit subscribe on YouTube. If you are looking at the description box, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. Click the Robinhood link. Get yourself a free stock. Get started while it's hot. Stocks are kind of down. The market's kind of down right now. That's a beautiful thing, man. Invest low. Warren Buffett said, try to buy a $1 company at 66 cents. That's what you want to do. You want to get it at a discounted price. It's hard to buy when the stocks are down because everything is like, don't pull the trigger. But that is when you want to pull the trigger. So pull the trigger, not at somebody, but with the stocks. Get yourself something good and enjoy it. Yeah. Oh, and if you're listening on Apple, please leave it a rating. I think we're closing into like 500 ratings on my podcast, or reviews. So that's awesome. Follow there too. Follow on Spotify. I hope Spotify comes out with like Spotify videos for content creators, like all content creators. That would make me very happy, at least for the podcast side, because Spotify is also music. So I don't know how you would have to like classify yourself as a podcaster, or maybe you can just have the option of also releasing the video. My buddy though, he showed me the video. It looks super nice. It looks just like YouTube, except not nearly as complicated. And you can like close your phone while you're also watching, still listening to the podcast. That's something you can't do with YouTube. You can't do that. But you remember when I was talking about, I think 2 episodes ago, maybe last episode, how Tim Kennedy was on Joe Rogan's podcast? Or no. I don't think I even talked about that. I don't think so. 2 episodes ago, I talked about Donald Trump, or maybe it was the last video, Donald Trump using Joe Rogan to help his clout in the presidential race. I'm not going to get into that, but I found it very fascinating that Trump knows who is the most influential person on the planet, which I think is Joe Rogan, at least in this country. He literally changes companies like Tesla. He literally changes the way people think. And he's had a huge influence on me, for the better. I'm gonna go ahead and take these off the last 5 minutes. I don't know why I even put them on. Now my hair looks like shit. Let's go take this all off for the last 5 minutes of the podcast. This has been a shit show. But shit show podcasts are the best podcasts, right? That's what people think. That's what I say. I agree with that. Maybe I can put them right here. I don't know. And I found it really fascinating that he was using Joe Rogan to influence his followers. And then Tim Kennedy went on Joe's podcast, and Tim Kennedy was talking about, hey Joe, why, would you be down to have Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden on your podcast, and you are like the mediator. You ask them questions back and forth. You listen to what they have to say. You give them fair time. They give you fair time. There's nobody else in the room besides Joe, Biden, Trump, and Jamie Vernon, who's the producer. He's the man. He's a fucking legend. And Joe was like, yeah, I'm totally down to do it. Anyways, Tim Kennedy puts out this tweet basically tagging everybody, Biden, Trump, Joe, Vernon, the podcast himself, asking people to retweet it so Trump can see this. Trump saw it, apparently, quoted the tweet, which is basically like a deal, or he was proposing a contract, and this contract it was already agreed upon by Trump, or by Rogan. It had to be agreed upon by Biden and Trump, Biden and Trump. And Rogan said he would do it. It would have to be at least 3 hours long. There could be nobody else in the room besides the 4 people. And yeah, those are basically the rules. And they talk. And I was thinking, like, this could be a beautiful, beautiful thing if they actually did that. Because I think people get so confused, like, that they might not like each other, but they're both humans. If you really don't like somebody, but if you have to talk to them for hours, you find things that you like about them. I think this could be a huge turning point for the country if this happened. And trust me, I know lawyers would try so hard to keep Biden out from doing it because the dude can't talk, and keep Trump out from doing it because he could really say some crazy shit. Crazy shit, because he says crazy shit in 30-second clips, but I think he also prepares for this 30-second clips. And he, literally says crazy shit on Twitter all the time. But I find it very fascinating. If that did happen, it could bring peace among the country. Because I think Biden and Trump, they both want the same thing, right? People all want the same thing. We want a moderately peaceful society. We want a happy society. We want people to have equality. We want women to have equality. We want transgenders to have equality. We want queers to have equality. We want homosexuals to have equality. We want African Americans. We want Hispanics. We want the Deutschland. We want the Deutschland Germans to have equality. Maybe, I think Deutschland is what the Germans call themselves. But we want the French. We even want the motherfucking Italians. Boy, we even want the Irish people to have equality, son. We want our dogs to have equality. We want everything to have equality. And I think the issue is, it's like in physics, right? You have 2 different sides of physics. I don't know what they are, but I do know there's a huge debate on them. And like here, for example, you have like a string theory versus many worlds theory. And I know like those are, and the book that I read, Something Deeply Hidden, was about multiverse theory. But I know like Stephen Wolfgang, I think his name is, or Wolfdrum, is a huge proponent of string theory. Then you have like Eric Weinstein, who's not a huge proponent of string theory, but they all want the same thing. They want to figure out the world, right? But they have different ways of doing it. But if you could, at least they agree that they're both trying to do the same thing. I think Trump and Biden want to do the same thing, but they don't want to agree that they're trying to do the same thing, because the moment you agree that you're trying to accomplish the same thing, people don't get crazy and they don't understand that there's no difference of teams, right? So if you could bring, if Rogan said he would do it, Trump, that's what I was trying to get to. Trump said, I do. He would do it. So it's up to Biden now. And if Biden doesn't say it, it fucks him. If Biden says he's going to do it, that could fuck him too. If he goes up there and he just completely forgets how to talk. The dude's had 2 brain surgeries. Like, he's legit mentally ill. Like I don't know if he's mentally ill, but he's old. You know, he's really old. And you have Trump, who like is popped off of probably Adderall and a bunch of other crazy shit. It's going to be interesting. I would love to see a 3-hour podcast with those two. I think after it's over, people will, this is why it's so hard to give Rogan so much shit, because he has nearly 1,600 episodes, 3,200 hours plus of him just talking. And when you talk so much and you say so many things, if you say one bad thing, but you don't say enough of those bad things and you don't say enough good things, they don't really even each other out, right? Because if you just say one really bad thing, you're not human. You're an asshole. But if you say a lot of bad things with a lot of good things, you're human, because we've all say things. Maybe I said something last week I shouldn't have said. That's just kind of how humanity works. We're inherently a bag of mixed emotions, right? We're crazy. We're fucking, I mean, we have dudes who DM people on Zoom. Like, we're fucking wild. By the way, don't nail your dick into the wall. That's a terrible idea. Don't do that. But yeah, I think that would be so fascinating to see. And if we are very competent with both our candidates, then we should see that. We should see that. And I'd love to see how Rogan deals with that. I think it's huge for this country to actually see both of them talk, because I don't think Biden will show up to the debates, because if he does show up to the debates, I think Trump will completely dismantle him. I really do. I was talking to somebody, and he thinks that Biden is going to stick it to Trump, and I just don't see that happening. Like, homeboy Biden played Despacito at like a Hispanic conference. Like, just so, it's such a rich white person thing to do. You're so caught up in your echo chamber that you actually forget about, like, hey man, you shouldn't play that. That's really weird. That's a really weird thing to do. I don't know. Especially since Justin Bieber is in that song too. I'm pretty sure he is. But I digress. That's the end of this podcast, guys. I'm going away this weekend. I'm going to try to do a podcast with Taylor next week, talking about what we did this weekend, just to give our views on it, just give an honest review on it. But I am very thankful to be here where I am with this podcast. It's doing well. The numbers keep on doing better and better, and I am blessed to be able to do it during coronavirus. It's saved me. It's helped me a lot. It's brought me a lot of opportunities too. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please go ahead and do all the things I already said. I'll catch you guys in episode 124 of the Michael Life Show. Peace out. See you. Have a beautiful, great weekend. See ya. Enjoy the weather too. The weather's really nice. See ya.